But and
I also
it's
use straw, but I purchased the straw so that it's on the lower list of I use it primarily for things that I know have grown really well in straw.
mhm,
It holds moisture more so than leaves for me.
yeah,
The look of new straw, there's really nothing like it.
yeah.
But once straw goes through a season or two,
It looks
meaning
rough.
not a full growing year, but even like from spring, by the time you get to like the end of summer, that straw is on the struggle bus. So again, it's done its job, but it's not as aesthetically pleasing. Again, that matters to me in a lot of spaces. There's also the element of, and I know we need to move on. The straw, it's easier for it to stay in place. So if I have a bed covered with netting, I may put leaves inside of that bed as mulch just because I know there's going to be some blowing around at some point, but it's kind of captured in the netting. If I have an open space, I may opt to use straw because again, it is kind of stationary just based on the texture of it and the makeup of it. So again, these are kind of the small things that I'm considering in my space. Leaves blowing around my front yard garden is not the most ideal. My backyard garden is not that big of a deal. So,
Yeah, and
move it along.
when you chop them up, they do stay better too.
Hmm.
Funny how
Hmm.
that works. All right, what's your next one?
All right. Oh, are we moving on to actual plants now? Can we talk
Yeah,
plants?
we have to finish up with plants.
So, this is the decision of what you're direct sowing versus what you're actually transplanting in. So, we've covered off very briefly your tomatoes, your peppers, your eggplants, these longer in time and fruiting plants. You should have transplants, no matter if you've already started them by seed or if you need to buy them, right? So, decide on you're actually putting these plants in the garden of that variety and then what you're direct sowing, right? So again, this is almost reaffirming what you've already worked through and where you're going to be planting them in. Keep in mind plant height and spacing here. So I am going to plant pole beans along the fence in my front yard, and I'm going to do that. I had cucumbers there last year. I've put this makeshift trellis up and I want to take advantage of that, right? I also need to consider everything growing around it and my ability to access that space to grow and to harvest, right? So this is almost your last chance to make adjustments to your growing plan, your planting plan. Um, I think that this is a last chance to double check on some of those direct sowable seeds and varieties, right? So we have in the shop backyard gardens on Etsy. You can check out the seeds there. You want to make sure that time to harvest. Do you have enough time to get your melons in by direct sowing them? A lot of us do, but we're right on the cusp of it right now. Right.
Yeah.
Some of the hotter spaces, this is almost where kind of best laid plans kind of come into action. And you kind of have to force yourself to sometimes make some hard decisions. Right. I totally believe in the whole you won't know unless you try. But at some point, in some cases, you kind of have to cut bait and move on to the next thing, the thing that's going to be more probable to give you basically some food.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking in advance too. So this is where the Planner app really comes in to action because first of all, it is a sponsor of the show, but taking your time, not being out in the, especially like in the heat of the summer, getting ready for fall, it's like
Hmm.
take a break, get on your app. You can get in the Google and Apple Play Store. Link is below for a discount, but you can get on there and you can start planning it out. And with the feature that they have now with the seed box and stuff and the notes, you can really get in there and say, because remember, we talked about 6 weeks earlier. So if you go
Hmm.
6 weeks out, that's from your planting date. And you can really get a seed started and get it going in time. So you make that plan, you decide what can be direct sowed, what needs to be transplanted. And if you do it well enough in advance, you can absolutely have a solid plan of action. Not to mention the drag and drop interface and all that stuff is really nice. But as far as plants go, my thing is, and this is no surprise to anybody, is your timing is everything for every single season. What I find the most problematic is most people are typically, summer planting. they're pretty good. They're right on time. It's kind of summer is like your easiest. It's like, hey, is it warm outside? Is it going to get cold? No. Okay, plant. But in the spring and fall, most people need to plant earlier. So, a lot of times what we're doing is we're trying to beat the heat. So you're trying to keep things from bolting. You're trying to keep things from, failing because of the heat or getting stunted. So, in the spring, you want to go earlier so you can go all the way up and you can get that 100% broccoli harvest. So if you've looked at your broccoli like, oh man, it bolted, there's only one thing to beat that, and that is plant it earlier. End of story. That's the only thing to beat it. That and lettuce, anything that bolts. If it's bolting right now, you need to plant it earlier next year. But in the fall, you need to plant a little bit earlier too, because a lot of times what we do is we think, oh, it's starting to cool off. I need to get my fall garden planted. And I'm sure a lot of people have had this, and feel free to comment about this, is you grow it, but it doesn't produce. And you're like, well, that was a good try. Well, plant it earlier, because what you have to realize is going into fall, you need to add grow time on because the sun is lower. So you add grow time on usually about 2 weeks, and then you put in, so you've got to manage the heat, typically speaking, when you plant these things, which includes shade, water, mulch, all these things. And that will help you, because then you'll get them growing. You'll have your fertilizer in, you'll have everything going, and then it'll start growing more and more, and you'll be closer and closer to getting ahead of cabbage, for instance, because it is a long growing crop. So if you take it and you look at it and you say, okay, my cabbage is 90-day crop. Okay, so you start your seed, and I think we've landed on this in the past, Batavia, but I think that a 90-day crop is from planting to harvesting, not seed starting.